What is up, everyone? This is your episode of Locked On Cavs for Monday, March 21st. I'm Chris Manning. That's Evan Damerl. On today's show, we are going to talk about Cavs Nuggets, Cavs Pistons, and the week ahead for the Cleveland Cavaliers. Let's get into it.
Cavs need a three. Sexton works on Irving, trying to get loose. He'll fire. Hey! Knocks it down! Ground. Here goes Okoro to the bucket, and oh my! Okoro throws it down. 10 seconds to go. Here comes Colin Sexton. Sexton chased by Hill. Off to Stevens. Oh my! 45 ticks to go. That shot is blocked by Nance.
Get that big stuff out of here.
Prince knocks down that Harden pass. Garland's there. Garland upstairs for Allen. Oh, look out!
There you go. That's called team ball right there.
Welcome to the Locked On Cavs podcast. As always, I'm Chris. That is Evan. We're working on getting that intro updated because it is a little outdated, but we are working on it. On today's show, again, Cavs Nuggets, Cavs Pistons, and the week ahead for the Cleveland Cavaliers. If you are just joining us for the first time, I'm Chris Manning. I cover the Cavs for places like Diamond Up Rocks, Fear the Sword, and more. That is my co-host, Evan Damerl. He covers the Cavs primarily for Facebook's Right Down. You could go subscribe today. Before we get too deep into the show, I want to thank you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen every single day. Remember, we are free and available on all platforms. Evan's giving out his business card and giving me editing to do. And also want to say that today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. That's BetOnline. That is where the game starts. Evan, a busy weekend for the Cleveland Cavaliers. Beat Denver in overtime on Friday. Turn around, kind of go a little down and look like they're going to fall to 1-3 against the Pistons this year. Come back, win that game. I guess I want to start with the Nuggets game. Let's go chronologically. What stood out to you from that one?
Well, other than the fact that the guy they had doing Cavs versus Nuggets, they kind of just took off the Jumbotron because when the Cavs...
Wait. They had some poor soul do this in person?
Yeah, I was one of the assistant producers at Bally Sports Ohio. I was sitting up on the standing room only bar.
Damn.
It was just everyone watching him slam McDonald's chicken McNuggets with bowls of dipping sauce in front of him. So
that's concerning for him.
He was at 49 midway into the third, and the crowd started booing him. So they stopped showing him after that point. So I don't know if he ever finished. Prior to the show, soon to be hopefully guest on the show, Marissa McNeese and I were both really wondering what did he die or something? Did he just seize because of the sodium intake?
I hope it is not that morbid, but I'm now gonna follow up on this and worry about that man. But basketball wise, what stood out to you?
What stood out to me is the fact, at least against Denver, that the Cavs kind of do some tricky, interesting stuff. I think we're starting to see maybe that some moments might not be too big for this Cavs team at times, where there's a lot of pressure. Denver is an interesting team just because they're down Jamal Murray, they're down Michael Porter Jr. Those two key central pieces on the offense for how things work for the Nuggets. But Nikola Jokic is just such a transcendental player, and JB Bickerstaff said it best. Nikola Jokic is the puzzle that the rest of the league is trying to solve on the defensive side of the ball. And I think the Cavs did an all right job defending him. They let him get his. Obviously, he's going to have an impact no matter what on both offense and defense. But if we were doing a play of the night, my play of the night pick would be Evan Mobley making the correct read at the last second and forcing a double onto Jokic, which forced an out-of-bounds turnover, which in turn helped the Cavs seal the win. The Cavs read the assignment. They understood things that maybe they needed to do to make Denver uncomfortable and win this game. And I think it's also just a good palate refresher for the Cavs too, because they've had some ugly losses to start in March.
Yeah, I think those are good places to start. I think I look at this game and think, okay, they lose the first quarter. They win the first quarter by 2. They lose the second quarter by 13. It feels like one of those games they're struggling. They don't really make a big push coming into the third quarter. They only win that quarter by 2. But in the fourth quarter, they outscored Denver 29-20. In that quarter, Denver shoots 8 of 19 from the field, just 1 of 8 from 3. Only took 5 free throws, making 3. In overtime, when this game goes to overtime, the Cavs outscore them only 12-9. But in overtime, the upset in overtime, Detroit shoots 40% from the field, 1 of 3 from 3. The Cavs were 5 of 9 in that same period. What I think we've seen, Evan, and I think this was a little bit in the Detroit game too, is we've seen a Cavs team that I don't think is consistently hitting that top 5 defensive level we've seen this year, right? This is the team that still has that in them, and they're a little banged up, and no Jared Allen right now really contributes to that. But what I think we're seeing is like they're able to turn it on, so to speak, at points and like make it work enough. And like sometimes that hasn't always happened. Like Philly, it wasn't enough to get the win, but against Denver, it was. Against Detroit, to a different degree, in a different way, it was sort of the same with the defense really revving up. And I think that Mobley play is the part of it. He's the catalyst to this, right? Like Darius Garland too, but like Evan Mobley's the catalyst to this, and he is making plays that are just absolutely insane. And look, this game also just matters from a standing perspective. The Cavs have one of the biggest games of their season this week in Toronto on Thursday night. To go 2-0 on the weekend and to come back and beat Denver like that in its own right was a really big deal for them, as they're still jockeying for playoff positioning.
Yeah, it's really interesting to think about. I think you hit the head on the nail a little bit with the fact that the Cavs really have struggled as of late, and like that Jared Allen is the defensive catalyst for this team as well, and not having him and not really having a clear indication of when he'll be back. I know JB Bickerstaff did say pregame that they have no firm set timeline of when his return will be to the court. I know Chris Haynes reported that they're hoping before the season is over, and there's optimism, but Evan Mobley stepping up in a big way. I think this is kind of what I was hoping for and expecting from him, where I don't want level up is what I keep saying, but I don't know if I want to say level up necessarily just because he keeps just climbing up the ranks. And I don't want to act like I'm surprised that he's just kind of growing at this exponential rate that he's at. But this was a good thing to see that you throw him at the center position. You ask him to play the four predominantly this season, but he's kind of adapted and adjusted really well. He's learning how to play through physicality. He's learning how to defend some of the league's best centers and Embiid and Jokic. And it's a bit of a trial by fire for him. And I think him becoming a bit of the linchpin and the catalyst in this defensive scheme the Cavs are trotting out there right now. Because, I mean, they're starting Lamar Stevens and Isaac Okoro, frankly, two non-shooters in this lineup, and it's still
And
working.
it's worked. And B, Okoro is shooting well right now. Like we will talk about that, I think, at some
Yeah.
point this week, because we have some space in between games. But he's shooting well right now, which is encouraging.
Chris Manning has an itch being scratched by Isaac Okoro playing well right now.
I have a type, but it's Lamar Stevens and Isaac Okoro as two very very Chris Manning type players.
If you ever meet Chris Manning's wife, it's actually just a carbon copy of Lamar Stevens and Isaac Okoro mixed into one.
Look, that's a very weird thing to say. That's a very
You
weird
said
thing
you have
to
a
say.
type. I'm just saying, dog.
But you just made this
either
weird.
way,
You made this uncomfortable.
this like you said, two big wins over the weekend. I think that's a good launching pad for them to hopefully beat a bad Lakers team on Monday. And then they go up to Toronto, like you said, Thursday, and then they're home Saturday against Chicago. Chicago's kind of free falling. They play the Bulls. The Bulls play the Raptors as well this week. So an interesting triangular dynamic between these three teams that showcases possible playoff standings. Like the Cavs could maybe bump up to the 4 seed by the time this week's over, just depending on how things shake out.
Yeah, the 5 seed being, I think, a tad more realistic. I think this is what I also want to note this on the defense. This is from Cleaning the Glass. So Evan, on the year, the Cavs are 5th in defensive rating. That is 108, giving up 108.4 points per 100 possessions. That is about That's about 3.5 points better than the league average. That's very very good. Cavs, by the way, still number 1 against the spread this year for you bettors out there. Over the last 2 weeks, the defensive rating in the league is 115.9, which is actually like much worse than the overall season average. And there's obviously some stuff out there you can see. The Cavs in that span are still, and some of this I think changed a little bit on Saturday, but they are 10th in the league in that stretch, 114.7 per 100 possessions. But that's a 6-point swing compared to what they are on the season. And like that tracks on the tape. We've seen them give up a lot of points. We've seen them kind of have spurts of really good defense. But it makes sense to me, right? Like I think defense around the league right now is a little bit, they're not doing quite as well as we've seen throughout the year on average. Like the last couple weeks, the numbers indicate that. I think the free throw stuff we've seen, there's the people may have seen the tweet from the weekend kind of showing the chart on free throws. That's very interesting if you just kind of think about how games are being called right now. But the defense is like still good enough, and over that stretch, it's like the offense is, I think particularly good. I mean, the Cavs over the last 2 weeks are 18th in offense, a little below league average, and that tracks too. But they're winning because the defense is still coming up at times, and then they're scoring enough, kind of when they need to, getting buckets when they need to, getting stuff from Kevin Love, getting stuff from Darius Garland, getting good reads from guys when they need to. Just a statistical note on this game from the Nuggets game. In this game, leading scorer, Larry Markkinen, had 31 points, 11 of 18 from the field, 6 of 12 from 3, 3-4 from the line, 10 rebounds as well. Evan Mobley had 27, 11, and a steal and 2 blocks. Darius Garland had in 45 minutes, 25 points, 5 of 7 from the line, 14 assists against just 2 turnovers. So those 3 guys really leading the way. Evan, after the break, we're going to get into Cavs Pistons, another Cavs win, another come from behind Cavs win. It took on a little bit of a different flavor, but we'll get into that after we transition here. But first, I believe you are going to tell everyone about our friends at BetOnline.
Yes, much like Kim Kardashian and Ray J, the Cavs came from behind. But
Whoa,
today's episode
whoa,
of Locked On
whoa,
Cavs is brought to you
whoa.
by BetOnline. It's that time of year again as college basketball's tournament is finally upon us. I was checking the Ohio State score while Chris was talking. They were losing to Villanova. So if I placed a bet on them, I would have used our friends today at betonline.net. From all the latest odds, contests, and player props, betonline.net is the number one source for all your sports betting needs and info. BetOnline remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And it's not just basketball. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering information needs, including live betting and your favorite Vegas casino games and even more. So head to their website today or use your mobile device to learn about the trends and action. BetOnline.net, where the game starts.
Want to thank you, by the way, for making Locked On Cavs your first listen every day. For your next listen, maybe check out the Locked On Now podcast, nightly recaps of every NBA game with analysis from our local experts. It's free and available wherever you get podcasts Monday through Friday. Okay, Evan, Cavs Pistons, second win of the Cavs weekend, win 113-109, had a monster third quarter, kind of fell down by as many as 12 in this game, led by as many as 10. Overcame a very good game from Jeremy Grant, who dropped 40 points in this one. Darius Garland in 41 minutes after playing 45 the night before, 24 and 12 for him against just 4 turnovers. Cedi Osman, after being benched for 2 games, had 16 points in 20 minutes. Also had 5 rebounds and 2 assists. Kevin Love coming off the bench as well, 14 points in 24 minutes, 5 of 7 from the field, 3 of 5 from 3, all threes coming in a pivotal third quarter for Cleveland. Evan Mobley, no slouch himself either, 12 points, 6 of 12 from the field, 11 boards, 6 assists, 2 block shots, and a steal. Evan, this to me was another game where the Cavs just kind of found a formula that worked in the game. I think we should talk about the Cedi Osman of it all a little bit, maybe more so in the third segment when we look ahead to this weekend and what things we're going to be looking out for. But I found that the Cavs, again, just like found a formula, won the third quarter by 6. In that quarter, the Detroit Pistons posted, let's see here, the Pistons in the third quarter led by as many as 12. The Cavs came back and were winning 82-81 in the third quarter as Kevin Love just kind of went off. In the quarter, the Pistons shot 37.5% from the field and just 38.9% on 2-point attempts. So, pretty good from Cleveland in that quarter, with them posting an offensive rating of just 84.4, which is like really, really bad in terms of the Pistons' offensive rating. So the Cavs in the third quarter of this game kind of were dominant, and that was like kind of a big reason why they're able to get this one done in my mind.
It's kind of sad to see Jeremy Grant assuming the Antoine Jameson role of drawing a parallel here to the rebuilding Cavaliers, where he just throws up 40 points and his team still loses. I want to ask you this, Chris, because I noticed this a little bit against Denver as well, where the Cavs really smothered the Nuggets for a little bit to kind of get themselves back into the game. I think they still have this issue where they let opposing teams bury them in a hole, but I think they're starting to find the ability to flip a switch a little bit and turn on the defensive pressure when they need to get themselves back into a game or help widen the gap a little bit. But you can correct me if I'm wrong on this. I'm sure the numbers maybe not match up with this right now just because this is just a 2-game winning streak, I believe, on Cleveland's part. But this is kind of an interesting development to watch this team grow up in real time and learn how to make winning plays, as cliche as that sounds, and find ways to come from behind and win.
Yeah, I think you're having to. I think we talked about this. I think with the Nuggets situation, I think them finding just ways and things that worked and riding them out. Like Kevin Love in this game was just awesome during the stretch of the third quarter, and like they don't win this game without Kevin Love like really getting going in that third quarter and just kind of going off and hitting those threes and really playing like putting some tape on the board there for his highlight reel campaign for if he's going to be a 6-man of the year candidate. Like that game is in there. Like this wasn't a quarter that was like defined by Darius Garland or like Evan Mobley. It was defined by Kevin Love having 9 points. It was defined by Cedi Osman, having 5 points in this quarter. It was defined by like them, just and Garland, had 3 assists, but like shoot well, but like it is these two role guys kind of coming in. Karis LeVert having a pretty good quarter as well. He had 5 in the quarter. Osman, actually, correction, only had 2, but was a plus 11 in the 3 minutes he played. Was kind of part of that lineup towards the end of the quarter that looked pretty good. And look, they are leaning on stuff at times when they just kind of need to find something, and they're just JB's hitting the right buttons. And I think, down the stretch of this game too, just you saw them just be able to continue to sustain that level. They hit the third quarter and they kept pushing and pushing and pushing. And we saw them just trying to press some different buttons. I mean, I thought it was really interesting to see Evan Mobley. It was interesting at times when Cade Cunningham slides over and is screaming in and defending him in the post, but you're seeing him have to like go one-on-one and get a bucket or make a read, and you're seeing them, I think, do a better job cutting the basketball. I mean, lo and behold, Isaac Okoro hit like the key 3 of this game to kind of ice it late, no pun intended. So, like, it's been a team that I think is still not. It's not like Apex Cavs. This is not the best we've seen them play this year. But I think you're right in just showcasing, hey, this is a team that has, I think, learned from what it's gone through this year and is making the most of kind of what's in front of them at a given time, because they're not. I mean, like I think they're tired. I think the second night of a back-to-back after overtime is always going to be physically kind of demanding. Don't have Jared Allen. It's late in the season. Like, there's just a lot going on, and it kind of I think you can feel that adding up a little bit as we've gone on here.
Yeah, you can really feel it adding on, and it's exciting to think about what maybe this Cavs team could pull off come playoff time and when this team is more so fully healthy. Because you look at Jared Allen on the bench, you look at Rajon Rondo. The injury report will be officially announced in about 18 minutes time, so we'll see. Actually, we'll see right now if the Cavs have updated it. But if Rondo coming back in the fold is just going to add more depth to the Cavs, he's out tomorrow against the Lakers. Surprise, surprise. But Brandon Goodwin's been playing well, but I think if you had more guard support, like Karis LeVert's still learning how to gel with his teammates and just kind of learn on the fly a little bit. Like, he has some interesting moments. I told Chris, like, he gives me Jordan Clarkson Cleveland vibes, where like he will dribble the hell out of the ball for a full 24-second shot clock and then just throw something up, and sometimes it goes in, sometimes it doesn't. Or you watch him just dribble all over the floor, fall, but maintain his dribble and somehow still get a shot in. So there's a lot of interesting stuff this Cavs team can do, but again, I think it's just encouraging to watch like them maybe learn from earlier losses. Like Ty said, it's not wins and losses, it's wins and lessons. And the Cavs are taking what they learned and applying it to games later in the season. And I'm kind of interested and excited to see where this ends up.
Want to point out the fourth quarter, excuse me, for these guys as well. So Darius Garland plays the whole fourth quarter. 7 points, 6 assists against just 3 turnovers, 3 of 3 from the field, 1 of 1 from 3. Then Isaac Okoro plays 10 plus minutes of the quarter, 2 of 3 from 3, 2 of 3 from the field, 1 of 1 from 3, 5 points. Markkanen plays 9 minutes of the quarter, 5 points, 1 of 1 from 3. Evan Mobley is 4 points in the quarter, has a steal, is 2 of 2 from the field, pretty impactful defensively as well. Did have a turnover, which I want to touch on a little bit in terms of like the posting up of it all. I guess just noting that like Cade Cunningham was the one who stole it from him. He also had a really nice possession where he like bullied Cade and Lamar Stevens cuts in and Lamar Stevens.
Well, that was something the Cavs did in general, not to cut you off, but like they forced their bigs on Cade down the stretch to kind of get easy buckets, and that's smart.
It wasn't forcing on Cade. What they were trying to do was they were running actions to get a Corey Joseph type. I don't have my notes in front of me, so I'm not gonna. I don't have the exact guy that this was, but they were trying to get Mobley on a guard. And what the Pistons were doing on the 2 possessions this really happened was they'd scram out and they'd have Cade slide in. And the Cade, like, to his credit, like physically the first time, like handled the first bump, and then Mobley just kind of like put his shoulder into a little bit more, creates the look. The second time he gets the steal. It's fun to see those guys go head to head a little bit. It was also just interesting to see how JB handled stuff down the stretch, because he plays Kevin, almost 7 minutes in the quarter. Jetty, again, who was on the bench for 2 straight games, plays 8 minutes in the fourth quarter. About LeVert only plays, he plays under half the quarter, and that's just kind of an interesting development. You're seeing, I think, and Lamar Stevens, who to his credit was very good in the first quarter, didn't play in the fourth quarter, even though he started the game. And like that's just, you can see JB, I think right now, he's saying, okay, I have Darius, I have Evan, and like those 2 guys I'm gonna lean on them. And then like if Markkanen's hot one night, great. If Isaac's playing great, I'm gonna lean on him. Great. Like he's kind of patchworking, I think, things as they go to just kind of find these holes, and that's a tricky way to live, right? But I think you're finding them he's finding success with that right now because like those guys are just playing some really good basketball. Like I mean, Isaac Okoro is going through a really nice stretch of offensive basketball right now. Not to mention the defense. Lamar is playing really well. I think Marketing, I think played maybe the best game he's ever played as a Cav against Denver on Friday. So there's just like a lot that is kind of working, even if it is not
Mm-hmm.
pretty. I don't think this is
Mm-hmm.
apex Cavs, but it is working enough for them to get 2 wins in the weekend, and that puts them just a half game behind the Chicago Bulls as we're recording this, going into Monday's game, or going into Monday and going into the new week. They are a game and a half up on the Toronto Raptors. For the 17th. So they have a little bit of cushion right now in Toronto. They play them again on Thursday, and will be a massive game up in Canada. And they play a bad Lakers team on Monday with an opportunity to be in a situation here to extend that lead further, to pad themselves a little bit as we're getting down to the stretch run of the season. And like that for the Cavs to like kind of go through that and navigate that and figure that out. That's a positive. Evan, I'm gonna pull up the scoreboard just to. You have any final thoughts on this game before as I look up the scoreboard to make sure I'm to know what games are happening on Sunday in case that'll change things.
I know I was dogging Jeremy Grant at first, but I think the Pistons are in a really good place. That's like another takeaway I had. Like they have a lot of fun young pieces, and I think Dwayne Casey's the right coach to kind of guide and rebuild this team, and maybe just help craft them a little bit and help just build these players up. Um, it's probably for the best that they didn't have like an Evelyn Mobley type ascension from Cade Cunningham this season. It's great for the Cavs too that the Pistons didn't take Evan Mobley period on this one, but it's definitely just interesting to think how far the Cavs are going and how much further the Pistons have to catch up. But the Pistons could be really good they could be a good bad team next year, where like they're fun to watch, but they're not going to win a ton of games, and like they're finally getting their way out of the cellar of the Eastern Conference.
Yeah. Notably on Sunday, the only game that really matters for the Cavs in this perspective is it hasn't tipped off as we're recording, but Philly plays. The Raptors play in Philadelphia, so the Cavs could very well be in a 2-game lead, and the Celtics play in Denver. And I don't think
I would not feel good about Toronto's chances in Philly. I think Fred VanVleet's out with a knee injury.
Philly is 6.5 point favorites, notably.
I'll tell you for sure in a second.
Yes, so this is we're coming down the stretch, and all of these games are gonna matter. So keep an eye on that as we go here. On Monday,
I can confirm he is out due to right knee injury management.
okay, and then Monday's
So it's
slate.
tough.
And keeping an eye on Monday's slate. As far as the East playoff picture goes, Philly plays Miami. The Nets play the Jazz in Brooklyn, so no Kyrie. The Raptors and the Bulls play each other on Monday, so that might be a game Cavs fans want to keep their eye on, aside from the Cavs-Lakers game that is, of course, happening in Cleveland, Ohio. All right, after the break, we're going to just hit on Jetty Osman, hit on the week ahead, but first going to tell everyone about our friends at Built Bar. Built Bar, Evan, is the best tasting protein bar out there. They have so many great flavors. I just restocked with some mint brownie, some cookies and cream. I stole some cookie doughs from the last time I ordered that are in my regular rotation here. And look, most Built Bars contain 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 grams of net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. And there are so many great flavors. Again, mint brownie, coconut almond. New for this month is white chocolate cookies and cream. They are all delicious with new flavors coming all the time. And if they think a flavor might be good, they are going to make it. It will be delicious and good for you. That's the Built Bar guarantee. At Built Bar, they are all about taste. So it gets made delicious first, and then they figure out how to make it healthy. I don't know how, but they literally do pull it off every single time. Go to Built.com, use the promo code LOCKED15, and get 15% off your order. Again, the promo code is LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. Also, just want to let everyone know to check out the Locked On Lakers podcast ahead of Monday's game. But I'm Chris Manning. That's Evan Damrell. Evan, what did you make of Jetty Osman being on the bench for 2 games in a row? DNPs, not injured, just a coach's decision. DNP CD. What did you make of his return, and what do you think he did enough to perhaps not be in that situation for the next few games?
I mean, possibly because it has to be deflating for no disrespect to Dylan Windler, but it has to be deflating for Jetty Osman to have a guy who's played more minutes in the G League this season than in the NBA this season supplant you in the rotation. I wonder if that's a bit of a motivating factor for him. I know they're friends at the end of the day, but you're also looking out for yourself. But his overall game was pretty good. I think he looked sharp. I think he looked locked in. For folks who keep asking like why he was in JB's doghouse, it's just because Jetty's been pretty inconsistent the last few games from 3. He was hitting, I believe, 29% of his 3-pointers in March heading into this game and only averaging like 9 points a night. And at least with Dylan, you get a body who can play defense. Dylan Willer's a bigger forward who can rebound the ball and get the ball out. He can slash a little bit. He can sometimes shoot it if he's locked in. I mean, you're not expecting much from Dylan Windler, but he hustles really hard. He plays really hard. I think the Cavs are looking for a spark, and maybe Windler just was that spark. And with Osm being so inconsistent, he just didn't play, but he played well. I wonder, I am curious to see how JB manages the rotation Monday against the Lakers, because we just don't know yet, obviously, because we're recording this on Sunday, but I think he played really well, and I'm intrigued to see if he keeps this up or if he's going to be more of a standby player like a Dean Wade or a Brandon Goodwin or players like that. Because Jetty said one of their lines saying like, well, I'm always just going to be ready for when my number is called. That's something Brandon Goodwin said in the past. It's something Dean Wade said in the past. And yes, those two players have had big games before, but I don't know if I put Jetty in the same stratosphere as those two because I feel like he is more of a consistent rotation piece. And I haven't completely gathered what happened, but I just think it's because he just is not making shots as of late.
Yeah. Oh, I think absolutely. I think he's not been quite as good, kind of late. I think. Look, he's not. He doesn't strike me as 100% like a JB Bickerstaff, kind of player. Like he's a little bit.
He doesn't play defense. That's what you need to do to get the JB's rotation consistently is play hard and play defense. Like you
Well,
sometimes the scoring can come and like JB jokes that like it'd be easier if we made a few shots, but JB is a defense first coach and Dylan plays defense to his credit.
yeah. I mean, I think he at least is like in the right position. I don't know if he's like quote unquote like good at defense or whatever.
Oh, he's not
Anyway,
good. He's tactically aware of where he's at on the court
and sometimes
and
Jetty,
also
like wanders like
has
kind of like
happy feet.
yeah. Well, and he's just sometimes like kind of the effort's not there and things like that. And it's not like Kevin where there's like sometimes Kevin frankly just like is not putting forth like the maximum sort of resistance on that end of the floor, but it's what it is. So Jetty, 8 games in March, 21.5 minutes, 43.8% from the field, 30.2% from three. If we remember, last year one of the things that was a big problem for him was that his 3-point percentage dipped below 30%. It has been like in the mid 30s for most of the year. Also 63.6% from the line, only had 1.4 attempts, so that's not a ton. But also turning the ball over one time a game, 2.3 assists, 1.8 turnovers. So just the numbers kind of show you that reinforce it. It's like, he's not been quite as good, particularly not good on the road. 38.9% 3-point shooting at home, and 24% on the road for Jetty, both in 4-game sample. So that's just kind of keep that in mind a little bit. I think for me, Evan, though, I think he was good enough on Saturday where I think it's just you kind of. Maybe it's still 20 minutes. Maybe it's still 15 minutes, depending on the night, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think the effort level was there. I think him running the floor was there. That was like the kind of performance that if the idea was, okay, we're going to sit you for 2 games and we're going to give someone else a shot. And they obviously didn't, Dylan didn't go and blow the doors off or anything like that. But if we're going to like give someone else a shot and we'll come back to you, we'll give you another chance and give you, and maybe just kind of sending a message there to some degree. If the message was Jetty, you need to play harder and like put forth the effort and kind of just like play within the stuff of what's going on here. It seemed to me that it worked. And again, he was on the floor for successful parts of this game, and it was one of the kind of more like still a couple things here and there that were a little like all over the place because that's just kind of the nature of what he is. But like I thought for the most part, it was a kind of like a pretty good Jetty game, and I would like to. We'll see how this manages going forward. I think it is worth monitoring as we kind of head towards the playoffs. Evan, give me one thing that isn't related to LeBron James that you want to look for on Monday night.
How the Cavs utilize their depth. Also, if Moses Brown gets a second 10-day, it technically expires today. I would believe he's played well. JB Bickerstaff kind of makes it seem like he's a fan of Moses Brown. I mean, hell, he's getting minutes this weekend with playing Jokic and the Pistons the following night.
The Cavs, he is sort of the Cavs backup center right now. Just for
he is. Yeah. But the Lakers may stink, and yeah, they have LeBron. And Anthony Davis is injured, but they still have a lot of size on their roster, and I wonder how the Cavs are going to defend that. I wonder if Moses Brown will still be around. In order to do that, it would make sense logically just to sign him to a second 10-day, and then either you let him walk after that or you just keep him for the remainder of the season. Can't play in the playoffs, but it is what it is. But at that point, when you're fully healthy, I don't think you need to play Moses Brown. But either way, I am interested to see how they do this. Maybe they bring back Eddie Tavares as well. That'd be fun too. But either way,
Would
I'm
it
just
though?
interested to see how the dude Walter owns a few records in Cavs franchise history. Put some respect on my man's name.
Okay.
For those who don't know, his name is Walter Eddie Tavares.
He's playing for
And
he's playing
Puerto
for
Rico, I
Real
think.
he's playing for
Oh, in
Real
Spain.
Madrid.
Either way, I want to see how they handle the Lakers' size. This feels like it could be a trap game for the Cavs just because there's a lot of positive momentum. Pat Williams being back for the Bulls makes things interesting later in the week, and I wonder how he is acclimated back into Chicago's rotation too. And at this point, you just hope the Cavs get healthy sooner instead of later, and they can kind of keep building on this positive momentum they are trying to launch off of this weekend.
Lakers are bad. Cavs should probably just try to win
But
this
the
one.
Cavs play down to bad teams consistently. The
I
Pistons,
I
they should put away the Pistons, but they have consistently
I
struggled
don't
with the Pistons every
okay.
game this year.
I don't necessarily always know if it's like playing down to bad teams necessarily. I sometimes just think like this is just where they're at with the fatigue and missing Jared Allen. Like I just don't think this
That's
team
fair.
is. I think this team is not quite at its apex. It's figuring out the Karis LeVert thing. They played a back to back. I think there's a little bit. It's maybe a little bit of that, but I think that's also a little bit like this is an 82 game season that has this team is going through really for the first time in earnest, and I think a lot of these guys are tired.
That's fair too. That's very fair too.
And of course, I'm honestly like the fact that LeBron is going to be in Cleveland is just always going to be fascinating, and there's no way around that.
No, absolutely. There's no other way around it, and it's fun. I think it's always fun to see that the Cavs are playing meaningful, purposeful basketball for the first time in several years without LeBron on the roster. Like that's huge in itself. But like the
Mm-hmm.
fact that they're doing it in mid to late March, heading into April and beyond, like that's exciting. And it's a fun, uncharted territory for us as a show. People always dog us for being a little too cynical about this team, but it's been fun.
Look, if I'm going to be honest, I think people just want to be spoon fed positivity and like that. You know what?
It's not a
Pragmatic.
contest to be the biggest fan, folks. You can be critical of teams, but we're not being unfair about it.
Pragmatism, reality based podcasting from here.
We're also
Um,
locally sourced. You can't find that in Winnipeg or Columbus, folks. Anyways, Chris, why don't you take us out of here?
Look, I have no disrespect to the great city of Columbus, Ohio. Okay, don't disrespect our friends. Okay, up north, we live in a partisan world, Evan. We're gonna bring together when there's common interests. It's not like those guys are like actually bad people. Can we unpack this for a minute, or you're rolling your eyes? Justin,
I'm not ready for NATO Chris Manning here, just like trying to
Evan,
like negotiate peace.
I had a thing that is. I told you when I saw you on Saturday for the first time. I am
Chris
still
almost met God a few weeks ago, folks.
not really, but I just had
Well,
a
when Evan was a little buzzed and got a text at 1:30 in the morning, he
don't.
thought his buddy was going to meet God.
I'm doing great. I'm just a little more zen and relaxed and no bad vibes. So we're gonna exit now. If you want a great second listen, check out the Lockdown Bets podcast with your barbecue and gambling expert Lee Sterling. Choose small bites. Stay hydrated. Be well. Be safe, everyone. We'll talk to you after Cavs Lakers. We'll be diving
Chris's
deep.
wife, if you're listening, the small bites is a point of emphasis.
Everyone, be well. Oh, damn, I gotta play the video. I'm rusty. And that's staying in.